Hi, everybody. Welcome to Discover College Soccer. Today, I'm lucky enough to be joined by Coach Dave Wilson from Oberlin College in Ohio. Welcome, Coach.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. Now, I'm an Ohio kid, so I'm pretty familiar with Oberlin, although I never did go up that way. I didn't get to visit the school or anything, so you'll have to tell us more about the school itself later. But for now, let's talk about the soccer side of things. You guys are Division III. You're in the
North
what's the
Coast
name of the
Athletic Conference.
NCAC? That's right.
Yep.
And it's a really good soccer conference on the boys' side for sure.
Yep.
So recruiting's got to be a big part of what you do. When do you start looking at players, and when do players start reaching out to you?
Yeah, so I'd say, anywhere from sophomore to junior year, they start reaching out to us. But our big kind of identification period usually is starting in kind of November of their junior year and then running through that spring. And that's where we're going to see guys at showcase events, watching a lot of video, doing those kinds of things, setting up meetings, and just trying to get to know, what our pool of players can look like for the year, and then building towards the summer where, we'll keep following up either through ID camps and things of that nature and getting ourselves set up for, fall official visits and those kinds of things.
So right before we got on, we were talking, you're getting ready to go out to Jeff Cup. So what are some of those key showcases, key tournaments that you guys make sure you get out to each year?
Yeah. So, if you haven't looked at our roster has 17 or 18 states represented on it. So, Oberlin has a national draw, and with the conservatory, an international draw. So we try to get kind of where we have a good base of players. We try to get out to the West Coast at least once a year, if not twice, to where we can see guys in California or the Pacific Northwest. Obviously go to stuff that's more local, as far as like Blue Chip and Crossroads, that tend to draw from, a big swath in the Midwest area. We used to go down to the Disney event, although that is something that is changing because it had such a national draw, but it's a little different now. Our focus has probably shifted more towards kind of the ECNL events that are scattered across the country, and we try to make it as many of those as we can. We went down to the one in Florida. There's plans to go to the one in Virginia later on, hopefully getting out to the national finals in San Diego, and those kinds of things. So.
Okay. You also mentioned ID camps. How do those fit into your plans? Do you do them there? Do you attend other people's, both? How does that work?
So in the past and prior to COVID, we were going to University of Notre Dame's camp and working that. That has changed how they staff it and everything else. They've kind of gone to a little different model. So that's not something we're doing currently. And we also used to go to Dartmouth, and these are places where we had connections with the coaching staff and different things. So it's a bit of an evolving picture right now as far as camps and things go. We've also hosted from time to time, depending on kind of circumstances and what our facilities, where they were, and, different phases of construction sometimes. An event for, rising seniors and juniors, and try to keep it relatively small, more like to what our roster size is. So you get a real training feel of how we work, and, we get a good chance to see you and evaluate you in that setting too.
Now you mentioned, connections with college coaches, but
Yep.
How about your connections with like club coaches? Are you talking to a lot of club coaches in your recruiting process, and how much is it players reaching out to you versus you talking to coaches and getting a feel for players?
So I would say most of our connections with club coaches is typically kind of in the follow-up phase to players that have reached out to us. We will get recommendations from guys we know well, or, sometimes guys in the area that know us well that'll reach out. Hey, I saw this kid, or he's interested, or I talked to him about Oberlin, or he's looking at a school similar to you. Maybe you should check out this player. So a little bit of a back and forth, but I'd say it's probably more in kind of the follow-up stages with a kid who's reached out to us or we've seen and made a connection with.
Okay. Now, when you're on the recruiting trail, you're at camps, whatever the case may be, what's kind of your hierarchy, your checklist of things you're looking for in a player for Oberlin, whether that's on the field or off the field?
Yeah, I mean, for us, our focus gets narrowed pretty quickly just based on the academics required to get in. So if I'm going to a showcase event and looking at a brochure and you don't have a GPA that's, in the 3.5 range, or a test score that reflects kind of what's admissible to Oberlin, it's not worth my time getting excited about it. So that's kind of where it starts. But then as far as just the playing aspect, I mean, we're all looking for technical players and things like that. And the style we like to play, we're looking for guys that can kind of adapt to different tactics and are play versatile and flexible and those kinds of things. So those are some of the things we value when we're watching and looking for, snippets as you watch a half or a full game of a guy at a showcase event or even at a camp. Just trying to get a good sense of whether they could fit into, what we do.
Okay, makes sense. Now, unfortunately, the one thing everybody likes to ask about is money. Obviously Division III, so no athletic money.
Right.
What does the overall financial aid picture kind of look like at Oberlin for players coming in?
Yeah, so it's no secret Oberlin's an expensive place. Tuition's high. You're gonna see the sticker price, and some people are gonna get scared away from it. To be perfectly honest, but that said, I think our financial aid office does a tremendous job as far as meeting all what is considered demonstrated need, right? And not in the, sort of that gapping process that some places will go through where, your package is better the first 2 years than it was the last 2 years, and those kinds of things, which I think people have, can be trapped into sometimes. I think they do a tremendous job just being really kind of forthright and honest with what that package looks like and try to get out ahead of it. So when we're going through the process with a kid leading into that summer, after, we get kids identified, we'll do a pre-read, and then we can do a pre-financial read with our admissions office to give you a real sense of what that actual price is, and not, be scared by what that sticker shock might give you.
Yeah. Okay. You mentioned you guys represented a whole bunch of states and you recruit even internationally. So what does, how does the international thing fit in for you guys? And what about any transfers or walk-ons?
So as far as internationals go, it's not something that I'd say is a priority in our recruiting process. There's international kids that kind of discover Oberlin, or that becomes part of their process, and then we kind of follow up. Like, we're not going lots of places searching for players in Iceland, England, Germany. Now, if there's a kid from Iceland that said, fills out our questionnaire, like, we definitely will follow up. And Oberlin's draw internationally, we're going to get kids that are interested and kind of follow up. Like right now, we have a guy from Denmark. We've had guys from Venezuela, Pakistan, Macedonia, really all over, in China, but I wouldn't say it's a big base of our team. And then just the nature of Oberlin, we don't have a lot of kind of transfers. We've had occasionally a guy come through that process, but most of our recruiting's done kind of graduating seniors, guys maybe that took a gap year. But that process is a little different. It also happens after kind of we've set up our recruiting class too. So it makes it a little trickier in that regard. But
okay. Well, let's shift gears, talk a little bit more about the school itself. We're lucky you're also an alum, so you got a very unique perspective on the school, which is always good. So yeah, I can, some people have heard of Oberlin, especially probably because of the conservatory piece, but
yeah.
Besides clicking around the website, what's some of the awesome things about Oberlin that you can give me?
I mean, the thing that makes it really tremendous is that there's kind of a niche for everything. And it also has, sort of the opportunities and resources that you probably wouldn't associate with a, school that's about 2,700 students. I mean, we have a first class art museum on campus. We have, the number of performances that the conservatory puts on, whether it's operas or orchestral or jazz concerts or all those different kinds of things. Like, the cultural exposure that way is just very unique. So it's got a niche kind of for everything. If you're into being involved in research and doing those kinds of things, those opportunities exist for you too. And it's, being purely undergraduate, you get to be involved in all kinds of stuff that you want to be involved in. So you can always kind of find your niche for things. And if it doesn't exist, then there's a lot of opportunity to kind of be able to create it, whether it's, student organization or doing different things like that as well. So, all that said, it can be hard sometimes to get people to focus on 1-2 priorities, and can have a lot going on sometimes. But yeah, I mean, there's a tremendous amount of stuff to do on campus. We've got a bowling alley, a bowling center on campus that's, available at, most hours of the day. So it's just a really interesting place with a lot of, diverse people from all over the place.
Cool. All right. Well, you mentioned priorities, and Division III, it is student first, right? Student athletes. So at your school, how do the players balance the rigors of Oberlin's academics along with their soccer plan?
Yeah. So I think one thing we're really blessed with that not all institutions are, we have a lot of space. So that also allows us to have training at a pretty routine time, and we're not competing with other programs for spaces and things. So where we've got to, practice at 11 in the morning because that's the only time we can get the field. So that, and that there's an academic break in the day from 4:30 to 7. So that's when we train. We get to have everybody together at the same time. It's predictable and it's built into your day. So in that way, it's really great as far as a balance goes. Like, there's a real structure to the day that doesn't make you choose between a particular major and being an athlete and doing those kinds of things. So that's really great. And then, I find for our guys that having that structure of the day helps them be on top of their work. And I think if you look at our GPAs over the, 12 years I've been coaching anyway, they're much better in the fall, 2 or 3 percentage points better in the fall, just because the day's organized and prioritized almost for you in a lot of ways. And there's not that opportunity to kind of procrastinate or, find a lot of other things going on. So I think the biggest thing, regardless of whether it's Oberlin or other environments, is just making sure that you have kind of set yourself up as far as being proactive with professors and those kinds of things in your schedule, just to make sure that you're fitting in the things you need to fit in, and not waiting the last minute or surprising somebody or a professor that, I'm going to be missing class for X, Y, and Z, so.
Well, you kind of alluded to it a little bit, but can you walk me through what a typical week would look like, each day, in terms of waking up to going to bed? What does all that look like during the season?
So in season during the week, Monday, typically we're on a playing schedule that's Wednesday, Saturday. So we'll train Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Sunday's typically off. So on a normal kind of during the week, you'll have 1 or 2 classes in the morning. Most of them don't start before 9 a.m., depending on kind of subject area and things like that. You might have a lab in the afternoon that usually runs 1:30 to 4:30. And then it's, out to practice at 4:45 is when we typically start. And then we like to get done, ahead of 6:30, 6:15. We like to get most of our work done in kind of an hour and a half stretch. Feel like if we haven't organized it so that we didn't really do our job on the day. So, and that gives them enough time, get over the dining hall and things like that. There are some classes that'll be after 7 p.m., usually more like seminars or screenings and those kinds of things. And we find that gives them enough time to, make all those things kind of work structurally in their day. Now we will travel, during the week, we'll have an away game or something where it's possible you'll miss an afternoon set of classes. We do our best to set up our schedule so that's a bare minimum. Usually it's 1 or 2 afternoon kind of during the year. But that's kind of the typical schedule. We play most of our games at 7 p.m., so there's not a whole lot of rush to your day. And there's time to kind of find that break or pause from, being in the classroom to getting ready to compete and those kinds of things.
Okay. In terms of, you mentioned travel, and what is your typical kind of conference radius, or even out of conference? You guys take a lot of trips. How does that kind of affect everything?
Yeah, so early in the year, sometimes we'll have something planned that's a little bigger of a trip, and that'll vary just based on where our kids are from in that maybe particular senior or junior class. Like we've gone to Roanoke to play Roanoke and Lynchburg. We've gone to Minnesota to play St. Thomas and McAllister. We went to California one year to play Pomona and Occidental. But those kinds of trips happen early in the year, kind of either before classes start or like in that first week. So there's not a lot of disruption. And then being in Ohio, as I'm sure you're aware, there are so many Division III institutions that you can build your schedule around. So I would say the rest of our schedule is usually built within kind of a 3-hour radius, so that there isn't a lot of those kind of straining on class schedules and those kinds of things as far as academics go. Our conference does kind of bleed out into Indiana. So we do have 2 schools in Indiana, DePauw and Wabash. And we play one of those guys away every year, but that's always on a weekend. And we leave on a Friday night and play Saturday morning, and then we're back by Saturday night sometime. So that's kind of the typical travel, I would say. And then if you get in the postseason, then you go wherever you can get. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm probably one of the few people that outside of the conference that's actually been to Crawfordsville, Indiana, and not gone not for no reason of Wabash. It was for my day job.
There's another reason to go to Crawfordsville, Indiana, to be honest with you. But
believe it or not, the largest book manufacturing facility in the country is in Crawfordsville, Indiana. But
interesting.
Yeah. So there's your
Learn
little
something
nugget.
New every day.
Your little nugget for the day. Yep. Well, let's talk more about the soccer side of things.
Sure.
So how big a roster do you like to carry? Are freshmen kind of fighting for time off the get-go, or how does that work?
Yeah, so I would say typically we like to have a roster right around 27, 28. It's expanded a little bit with COVID, as everybody's had to deal with different roster fluctuations through various kind of factors in that realm. But that's where we like to be: 3 goalkeepers, maybe 4 goalkeepers, 24, 25 field players, right in that range. There's 2 of us, so we find that number lets us do all the things we want to do in training, still give enough attention to help kids develop kind of through the 4 years, and be productive if they're not productive right away, and just get the kind of attention and have the kind of experience that I think is warranted in small college athletics.
Yeah.
So that's where we like to be. We like to be balanced if we can. Right now, we're pretty imbalanced as a result of some of the COVID issues we dealt with. And we're probably right around, I think we're going to probably end up right around 30 this fall, with some bigger classes. But
yeah. Now you mentioned it's the 2 of you, so you're the assistant coach. You've been there a long time, but Coach Blake's been there even longer. It's one of the well tenured coaching staffs of college soccer, probably. But so with the 2 of you, kind of what role does each person play? Is there anybody else involved in the program, whether that's strictly for soccer or shared services with other departments? What does that look like?
So as far as kind of how our dynamic works, I mean, the head man obviously is making the calls and have to answer for him, and looking to me for different advice and different things like that. And then we both have our hand obviously in kind of the recruiting and identifying piece and all those things. I handle a lot of sort of putting together our fitness components and those kinds of things, and warm up and those kinds of preparations ahead of training and things like that. And then, we'll have different splits to functional areas, but we're both pretty comfortable working with either. He was a goalkeeper, so he specializes with that. He's a lot better in that realm than I am. But being around him long enough now, I at least know what to look for, if nothing else. And then as far as our support staff goes, I mean, we have a partnership with T3, which is a kind of athletic performance strength and conditioning company that's up the road from us, where they have trainers that come down and work with all of our student athletes in the department. And during the season, they work with one of those coaches once a week, and out of season, it's 3 times a week. So it's a really great resource for them to have. We have a trainer that's dedicated to our team and the women's team in the fall. So she's pretty routinely traveling with us. So we have kind of that oversight too, which is pretty great. But yeah, from the soccer side of things anyway, it's just he and I kind of working through the tactics and making it all kind of meld together.
Well, speak of that, like how would you describe, your guys' style of coaching, the team style of
Yeah.
play, kind of the culture of the team?
Yeah, as far as our style of play, I'd say, we want to be very much in the kind of Cruyff and Pep school of positional play, and we like to build out of the back and those things. So we like to possession oriented attack is probably the phrase that we try to like to play through layers, keep the ball on the floor, and really have a good understanding of how to overload spaces and those kinds of things. So that's what we're looking for. And then as far as how we kind of put that together, I mean, I think we both really value kind of the role as a teacher and mentor in what we do. So aside from teaching just kind of the basic concepts of all those things and what we're looking for, we're also trying to build a culture of where they're taking some ownership of those different things and kind of working on the mental side of the game as well. And we meet weekly in the off season kind of with our group and talk about some different books. We've read Culture Code together. This book, Soccer Tough by Dan Abrams, which is something that's pretty interesting sports psychology perspective for the game that we find helpful. And it kind of leads us through kind of how we about how we deal with adversity and do those kinds of things. And because it's going to be a challenge somewhere along the line for whatever your situation is, whether it's you're playing a lot and you're not performing as well as you'd like to, or you're not playing as much as you'd like, and how do I get better and those kinds of things. So we put a lot into it from that perspective, just beyond kind of the basic tactics and technical work that we'll do too. So.
Okay. We're sitting here in March. So what is your typical off-season program kind of look like? You mentioned a little bit on the strength and conditioning side, but what does that, I guess, the full spring kind of look like?
So once they get out of season, it kind of kicks off right in November, to be perfectly honest. We have an indoor facility, which is really great. So the captains start running kind of their own sessions in this. It's Williams Fieldhouse. So it's about it's big enough to play like 6v6, 7v7 and kind of small sided, which is really great. They'll do that 3 times a week. And then it's probably right after Thanksgiving, they'll get into start working with the strength and conditioning coaches 3 times a week, and starting to, work on those different things that they need to, as far as getting stronger, getting more powerful, more explosive, those kinds of things. Then as we get back for spring, and so Oberlin's model is a little different than most. We have a January term, which is about a 5-week stretch between fall and spring semester where they do a project. So it's not always on campus. So sometimes it's a challenge to kind of build different programs and things for guys that might not have weight rooms and things like that accessible. So we do a little bit of that and building those programs for them. And then in the spring, it just kind of a resumption as the semester starts. And then we have our non-traditional season after spring break. So we'll go 5 weeks, 3 times a week, and kind of in that normal training time slot that we had in the fall. And, it's much more player focused than a lot of the tactics and things we're working through in the fall. Whether it's getting more reps at a particular skill, whether it's building on some, system we want to work through, a pressing idea, all those kinds of things. But largely it's how do we improve the individual player more than anything, which doesn't always get its full attention in the, rigors of a season, where you get a day to prepare for somebody, you get a day to get back into, ready to play, and then you're preparing for the next guy. So gives us some space to be able to kind of really focus on the player. And then they'll go into the summer with a 10 or 12 week program to get ready to come back in August to start the whole thing over again.
Okay. Well, I don't want to take too much of your time. We've covered a lot of ground, but my last question is always the same for folks. It's
Yeah.
didn't we talk about? What did we miss? What is something you want to make sure you say, or something you want to reiterate? Now's the time.
Well, I felt like I hit most of the high notes, but Oberlin obviously has a really special place in my heart being an alum. And it's always fun to ratchet up another notch. But I think the diversity of experience and the amount of things you get kind of exposed to in a small town make Oberlin really interesting. And it's made our team really interesting over the years, and it's been kind of its own education in lots of ways as far as that goes. So it's just a really unique and great place, and it's worth exploring for anyone if you're up for the challenges that it has.
Awesome. Well, Coach, I wish you the best of luck in the fall, and thank you for your time, and we'll keep an eye on you, see how you guys are doing.
All right, I appreciate it. Thanks for the opportunity, Matt.
Thank you.